A few short days ago, Canada-Saudi relations seemed as normal as they'd ever been, but today call them abysmal. The kingdom continues to lash out at Canada for questioning its jailing of a prominent human rights activist. Ottawa is standing its ground.
We're going to stand with the values that we know are important to Canadians, and Saudi Arabia will take the decisions that they will take.
Finance Minister Bill Morneau today in political lockstep with Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland. Meanwhile, other Middle Eastern nations are publicly voicing their support for Saudi Arabia in this dispute. Jordan, Bahrain, the UAE, even the Palestinian Authority. Canada, for its part, did not get the same unequivocal support from its close ally today.
They're friends, they're partners, as is Canada as well. Both sides need to diplomatically resolve this together. We can't do it for them. They need to resolve it together.
Now, many Saudis currently in Canada are now in a pretty tight spot. In fact, earlier this evening, Saudi state media announced that treatment of its citizens in Canadian hospitals must stop pending their transfer out of the country. And thousands of Saudi students studying here are already trapped in a confusing limbo after Riyadh canceled their scholarships with plans to send them to other countries as well. Our Katie Nicholson at what they're going through.
Every day, Abdul Haq offers prayers to Allah, but today his thoughts are with his Saudi friends who won't be finishing their degrees in Canada.
Obviously, they will lose some time, money, all the time. Not all the courses that they were taking here, they'll be able to find in UK and the States, right?
Today, a steady stream of students at the University of Ottawa looking for answers, but no one wanted to talk. Perhaps not surprising, given their scholarships are on the line, and the chill, some say, has settled in. Take this ex-Saudi in Sherbrooke. He's not affected, but now fears for the safety of his family back home after he sent out a flurry of tweets critical of the Saudi government.
They just want political activists to remain silent, to be scared.
Universities are also paying a price. They charge foreign students tuition fees 4 times higher than their Canadian counterparts.
Overall, students in Canada who come from other countries contribute over $15 billion to the Canadian economy.
Universities are still trying to figure out what this will mean come September, but they know this will affect more than their bottom lines.
Saskatchewan is in the middle of the prairies of Canada, and we really appreciate diversity and inclusion, and I think this is going to leave a tremendous cultural hole in our university.
Students and schools aren't the only ones caught in the middle. Saudi Arabia's national airline canceled its flights to Canada starting next week. Abdul Haq's mother was supposed to fly to Canada the day the ban kicks in.
So it was at 12:45 on Monday, so 45 minutes after the ban actually comes into effect. So
and Haq isn't afraid to say what many others think.
Canada just asking for some human rights activists to be released, and on the other hand, the reaction from the Saudi government was just absurd.
Absurd to Abdul Haq, but a move that has serious consequences. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
So this snarling from Saudi Arabia may feel a little random and peculiar, but it's not. The kingdom has a habit of targeting some countries for so-called foreign meddling, but interestingly, not the major powers, rather mid-level powers that the Saudis know they have some leverage over, and it likes to send this message: keep quiet or else. That's what happened to Sweden in 2015. The kingdom recalled its ambassador, then said it would no longer issue or renew business visas to Swedish citizens, a lever it could still pull with Canada, by the way. So what sparked that rage? Well, this should sound familiar. Sweden's foreign minister, Margot Wallström, who promised a feminist platform, had some harsh words for Saudi Arabia. She criticized its treatment of Raif Badawi. And then she spoke out against the kingdom's move to block her from delivering a speech on women's rights at the Arab League. Then she pulled an arms deal. Sweden's nervous business community published a statement begging the government to just maintain good relations with the kingdom.
But it feels like you're rowing back now, or that you're worried about.
Later, in an interview with the BBC, Sweden's foreign minister had clearly softened her tone.
And they know very well what we think about democracy and human rights. But we also need to have diplomatic and political and economic ties.
Now that Canada is in the kingdom's bad books, not a word from Sweden in support. We asked for a statement, didn't get one.
Well, it's not just Sweden. Hardly any Western country really has taken the side of Canada.
Europe knows well the icy winds that can blow from the Saudi desert. Last November, Germany's foreign minister criticized Saudi Arabia. So the kingdom pulled its ambassador, ordered that no new contracts would be issued to Germany.
Most of the Western nations now would like to give the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia a chance. They support his reformist agenda.
There is a new foreign minister in Germany, currently a silent one, but the former minister stepped gingerly into the fray again today, writing, Saudi Arabia also tried to put me under pressure. I criticized the events surrounding the temporary resignation of the Lebanese prime minister. They withdrew their ambassador and withdrew orders from the German economy. Nevertheless, no blackmail on human rights. That, Canada so far is as publicly supportive as anyone seems willing to get. Okay, so clearly the Saudis like to play hardball and they're not above economic blackmail. But what else could Canada be in for if this game of diplomatic chicken goes on? For more on where this could be going, let's bring in Thomas Juneau, Assistant Professor of Public and International Affairs at the University of Ottawa. Thanks for joining us. What are you on the lookout for from Saudi Arabia now?
Well, Saudi Arabia has already announced a series of very harsh measures against Canada. We've seen the students being pulled out. Today we've seen an announcement that they will not accept Canadian wheat. The next step that I'm looking for is the famous light armored vehicle deal for $15 billion. As of right now, we don't know if that is surviving or not.
Well, that's the deal that everyone clearly talks about, but it seems that there's likely a lot more at stake for Canada, no?
There clearly is a lot more at stake, but by now, Saudi Arabia has used a lot of the tools that it has to pressure Canada. There is not a lot of trade between the two countries. Students have been pulled out. There's not that much left, besides perhaps maybe closing the embassies right now. That's maybe another step to watch for.
Or maybe holding back some visas or not issuing new ones, maybe?
That's another possibility. There's not that much, exchange between the two countries, and keeping in mind that the visa issue was already a point of tension between the two countries. Saudi Arabia was charging for Canadian visas, considering that Canada took too much time, so that could be another step. But compared to other countries like Iran, for example, that's maybe a bit less of an issue because there's fewer members of the diaspora.
So I guess the big question for a lot of people now is what is Canada supposed to do in this moment? Sort of zip it, stay quiet, and just sit on its anger?
Well, for now, I find that the government's approach has probably been the least bad option. And there's nothing that it can do right now that would be a great approach. But they've played it very low profile. Besides a speech by Minister Freeland yesterday where she said that we would continue standing for human rights, the government has not said what it will specifically do. It has not said whether it wants the LAV deal to survive. It has not said whether it will keep the embassy in Riyadh open and so on. And I think at this point, because Saudi Arabia is so reckless, it is so enraged at this point, for Ottawa, the only reasonable, mature thing to do is to, at least for a couple of days, to sit back and hope for a de-escalation.
Okay, Thomas Juneau, thank you very much.
Thank you.